Be curious. Everybody, the minorities, the majority, everybody, be curious. Assume the best in people. Assume that people always mean good. Even if somebody is giving you feedback, and even if the feedback is strong and harsh, assume that they're always meaning good. They're giving you this feedback so that you can learn and grow and become better.
Yeah, I think to complement that, look at it as an enjoyable process, learning process. You will not from one day to the other become an inclusive company or an inclusive group of people or an inclusive, I don't know, individual who knows everything about everyone and can make everyone feel great.
Be welcoming. Be welcoming to people who are different than you. Be welcoming to your new joiners. Even if you've made a hire and you think, yeah, is this the right person? Give it some time. 1 month is not enough. Give it six months to decide if it's really the right hire or not.
Totally. Yes. And I
Yes.
think I'd like to close that one with what Michali said is as well. Have empathy, understand. And you also mentioned this, like put yourself in the other person's shoes. And give it a chance and think from that perspective. Look at it from a little bit of a different angle than you're used to. Hi everyone. Welcome to the People Things podcast today. And since this is our first formal episode, I'd like to quickly do an introduction of me, a little bit of why we are here today, and we have a very special guest that I'm looking forward to listen to, and so that you also get to know this very special person and amazing person that I have worked with. So let's get into it. So my name is Priya. And this is a podcast called People Things. And for these podcasts, I will be inviting people to join me in discussing matters that affect us as human beings. So it's a little bit broad. There's different topics that um, I want to speak about quite openly and create a safe space for that. And also bring in like minded people who would like to share their perspective. And as human beings, we go through different things, positives, negatives, or challenges, or having a smooth sailing. But um, this podcast is just about talking those things. There's nothing specific. We don't have a specific agenda. It's more of a conversation. And for anyone who'd like to contribute with your ideas and stuff, you can also write to me. I will be putting my email address towards the end of this. So welcome again to People Things. In general, as I said, we keep it broad, but I'm also aware that I tend to naturally gravitate towards topics like diversity, inclusion, belonging, mental health, work in life, work-life balance, whatever you whatever you want to say. So it's just about discussing us as human beings. And as I mentioned really quickly initially as well, for today's episode, I've invited a very special person. Her name is Michali. I have worked with her. We crossed paths at one of previous workplaces that we were in the same team, and she's a delight to work with and get to know as well at a personal level. She's got 10 years of experience relocating people from different parts of the world. That is so inspiring, and that's so like great. And to be honest, I've done a little bit of this in my HR career, and it was one of the most challenging things I've done. And the reason I have Mishali here as well is like we decided to talk a little bit today about belonging and feeling included. Whether it's a workplace, whether it's a different country that you're in, whether it's a school, whether any kind of social setting. And I feel that no one else better than Mishali could give us a perspective, because when you move countries, when you move to different places from where, like from a certain place, you're changing your entire life. You're like bringing yourself. You're trying to integrate into a different community, a different society altogether. And I'm sure Mishali has a lot to share with us today about that. And so over to you, Mishali. Welcome again. Maybe you can say a few words before we can get into our conversation.
Hi, Priya. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here. So, yeah, thank you so much for the lovely introduction. Basically, just a bit about myself. I am Michali. I originally come from Israel and I relocated to Germany myself a bit longer than 10 years ago. So, I've been living here for the past 10 years. When I relocated to Germany, I started working in relocating people, basically. So, basically, when I was coming to Germany, I had a job working remotely for an Israeli company. I did that before it was cool. When I was
Yeah.
basically one of the only people who did that, working from abroad, working from home for another country, for another company. And I was kind of sick and tired of being at home all day by myself, working in my pajamas, which all the things that today we know are completely unhealthy, right? So I wanted to leave the house a bit and I wanted to work a little bit outside of the house. And back then, the only service that expats could consume was the service of being accompanied to the immigration office. So, for example, you're new in town, you need to get your visa, then you have an appointment at the immigration office, and you don't speak German, and they're in the immigration office here in lovely Germany. They refuse to speak any other language because they say the official language is German, therefore they want to speak only German. Okay. And the only service that expats could consume back then is to have somebody go with them so that they don't have to do it by themselves. They don't have to be there by
Mhm.
themselves. And I started doing that just a bit for fun, a bit for leaving the house, a little bit of extra income. And I did it once, I did it twice. I was like, yeah, that's nice. I don't think I can live off that, but it's a nice thing to do. Did it three times. And the fourth time, the caseworkers started recognizing me. And the fifth time, they told me, hey, Michali, maybe you want to read the law a little bit to understand how this is working. The sixth time, I started understanding that there are patterns. And before you know it, I've been doing it for 7 years, accompanying people from all over the world coming who were relocating to Germany, learning a lot and understanding the patterns. After this really amazing time working in relocation, doing the hands on relocation, I had the opportunity to join as an in house global mobility partner in the company, which I was happy to take just because I wanted the variation. And since then, I've been working in companies as an in house global mobility partner, basically doing the global mobility work in house for the company, so for the employees of the company. Yeah, and that is me. I live in Berlin with my partner and dog, and I'm really happy to be here. Thanks again for having me.
Thank you so much, Michelle. You have such an amazing journey and a very, very interesting story as well. And I'm sure that a lot of people will be able to relate to the problem that you were trying to solve, also with the services that you were providing to people. And I'm sure that I think knowing you, you have been able to also comfort people and give them like an understanding of what is it different, what is the challenge here. Because a lot of times I think the biggest issue is that there's just no awareness, right, about these things, about the bureaucracy, about the paperwork, about why certain things are in a certain way, and so on. So yeah, thank you for sharing that with us. But again, um, I wanted to come back again to the topic that I think we both spoke about over coffee some time ago, and it was like feeling included, right? So um, even when you're moving from different countries, or you're like moving into a company to work in any kind of social setting where there's like three or more people together, it's very, we spoke about the importance of feeling included, the importance of knowing that you belong there, right? So, in your opinion, why is this important? Like, what makes this a very important thing for us as human beings?
I think so. For everybody want to belong where they are. This is super important because if you feel like you don't belong, it's a bit difficult to explain. But for me, if I feel like I don't belong, then it's like
Hmm.
nothing really works.
Like,
Nothing really clicks. And then the creativity and the productivity and the inspiration and all the things that happen when people come together, they cannot take place, they cannot exist to the level that we want them to exist. So I think this is what I learned, that if you want something to really work well, if you want something to really be inspiring, if you want people to really have uh, a success experience, to have the this experience of having an impact, making an impact, um, then they need to feel like they belong. They need to feel like they're in an environment where they feel safe to be themselves, where they belong, where they're accepted as they are.
yeah,
And if you don't have that, if they feel like they are guests in this country, or if they feel like they are guests in this company or guests in this team, they can be kicked out at any time, right? And then this entire co-creating and working together on projects will not happen in the same extent that it would if people feel like they belong. Um, this is also super interesting to look at it from an immigration perspective and from a relocation perspective, because I have accompanied many, many people. And sometimes I saw cases where I thought, this just clicks, this just works. The people will have an amazing experience here in Germany or in another country, because I've also done
Mm,
that, right? They will have an amazing experience. They will fit right in. It's going to be amazing for them. And then they ended up staying like 1 or 2 years. They didn't like it and they left. And there were other cases in which I thought, oh, this will never work. I don't think these people will be happy being away from their family. I don't think they will like the culture here. I don't think that they will be able to find good jobs that they will like. I don't think this will work. I think they will leave very quickly.
mm,
But they ended up staying. Now, if we look at all of those cases and the cases where I thought this would fit right in, the people always had really, really good starting points, right? They had good professions that they can find good jobs in. They had nice savings that they can live off to begin with. They
right.
looked resilient, right? But when they came here, they weren't really able to find their spot. They weren't really able to find where they belong. Whereas the other people, where I thought, yeah, maybe they will not be happy here, maybe they will not be able to find jobs or whatever, they all, if you look at them today, they all have their little communities that they built, that they belong to. So
Mhm.
I think this is some like the spice. This is the secret spice. Belonging is the
Yeah.
secret spice that that decides if things will be successful or not.
Hmm.
You
I
see it
think
where
that is
very well in teams also.
exactly. I mean, I want this is a good segue, I think, to also come to that. You've actually mentioned from a very important immigration perspective, right? I see similarities. So in my role as within HR as an HR business partner, um, I have I have seen these similarities in smaller teams as well. So I haven't done like a big study, and I don't have a lot of numbers to publish and everything. But a lot of times, when people join companies as well, right? I have a similar observation that this person is culturally going to fit. This person is going to be a great success when they start here. Or I have sometimes have a little bit of doubts, like I'm not sure if this will work out towards the end. I question if we've made a good hiring decision. But to be honest, and I think this is very, very creepy, there's a lot of similarities and parallels from what you said and what I have also observed is that people come in, they start building their internal networks, right? They start finding themselves. They try to, they also see that, oh, the way I am right now, I can be the best version of myself. And this is where I can actually I can perform well. I can be whoever I want. um, and usually what happens is when people feel that they're not included in any companies or in any teams and so on is when they start thinking that their personality is not matching for this and they
Mm,
don't belong here because of that. And that's why when I talk to leaders and when I also like do any trainings on feedback and so on, I was like, never give people feedback about their personality. It's the hardest thing to change. And there's a lot of studies about it as well. It's like you're born with it. This is how you are, right? And all people want is to actually be the best version of themselves when they come to work as well. And when that doesn't happen, they could be an amazing performer. They could know a lot about the topic that they've been employed for. They could actually be very reliable. They could have all those qualities, but they will not feel comfortable working in that organization, especially if it is a high demand profession and so on. This could be a deal breaker. And many times when I do exit interviews, it's just like, yeah, I mean, I feel I'm not a culture fit, or I'm not like fitting here, or I don't belong here, or I don't feel that I can be the best version of myself. So that's a high level answer that I get. And I usually try to also understand, okay, they first tell me a very technical answer, but the more I dig in and try to understand, it comes to a very simple thing. It's just like they don't feel comfortable. They don't feel accepted. Or they don't feel like they can be themselves, right? So it's a very interesting, and I think we can draw parallels from your life and my life,
yeah.
and see that happening quite a lot. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think um, I'd also like to like come to the point right now a little bit, right? So we're talking a lot about belonging and inclusiveness and so on. Do you have some examples, Michelle, that you can maybe talk about where it's done well, where you feel that, oh, this is really really good what we've done, or this is really good, let's say, an experience someone had because they felt that they belonged somewhere. Can you think about something? Do you have some examples you can share?
This is really like on point. Everything that you're saying is really like on point of about like belonging and about feeling comfortable, about feeling like what you are. I think when we talk about high performing environments, in many cases, the thing that makes the environment high performing is that you have different people who bring different perspectives to life. And they feel comfortable just being themselves and contributing to the world as they are, right? And so I think that at the like very good examples happen in international companies where you have people who come from all over the world, and those people have maybe different job levels or something. I think that the flat hierarchy has also a lot to do with it.
Yes.
Yeah, because that creates this kind of like just be yourself, come as you are, and you are as good. You're perfect to us just as you are. And creating this belonging cue, creating this experience that you can just be who you are and everything will be okay. This is something that I did not see in many companies, but in the companies that I've seen it, amazing things happen. So I have one example from a company I know, and it's an example about a very junior person who just joined the
Mm.
company. And this person, when they came to the company, they didn't know where to sit, where to go. Nobody came to greet them. You know, the perfect onboarding experience, like of like you just come to the company, you're like, okay, here's your laptop, go figure it out. And this person just went around in the company, in the office, found an available seat, like a free seat, and sat there and started doing their work, doing the tasks
Yep.
that you have to do when you're onboarding and everything. And next to this person sat another person who was always on the phone speaking. This was in Germany. This person was speaking in German all the time, just speaking and speaking and speaking. And then at a certain point, that person who was always speaking got off the phone. Then they noticed that next to them sits a new person. So they went to this new person and said, "Hi, nice to meet you. How is your first? Is this your first
Yeah.
day? Like, where do you come from? Is this your first day? How is it going?" And so on. And this other person was like sharing that, yeah, it's the first day and they're trying to figure it out, but you were all the time on the phone here, so it was kind of difficult for me to concentrate and so on. And the other person was really friendly, taking on this feedback, and only afterwards the junior person understood that he was talking to the founder of the company, who was just sitting
Okay.
there in the middle of the co-working space, in the middle of the open space of the open office, not in their own room or something, just in the middle of the open space, and everybody could sit next to them. And I think in an environment like this, where everybody can take feedback and where everybody can just be
Mhm.
open to say whatever they want and be whoever they want, and nobody gets insulted and nobody is like, "Who do you think you are? I'm the founder of this company." Then basically, lots of really, really amazing things can happen. I can give you an opposite example
Mhm.
of something that I saw in another company where there was also this not very senior person who had to figure something out with a provider, and then that person called the provider, and somebody picked up the phone. They clarified the topic, and then the employee of the company said to the person from the provider's side, "Hey, this is the first time I'm calling this company and somebody is picking up. And also all of our employees are not happy with your service. And we are actually also not happy with your service. And what do you have to say about this? And I wanted to also tell you that what you did in this case was not good." And the other person on the other side of the phone was like, "Oh, good that you are telling me this. I am actually the owner of this company, so thank you for your feedback." And then the person from the company, like the employee of the company, felt really, really, really ashamed and felt like they made a huge mistake because this is not the communication style that they're used to. Um, and this is maybe the opposite example, or maybe it's the same type of example of how people would react in an environment that's
Different.
open to feedback, and how people would react in an environment that's not open to feedback. Anyways, what I'm coming down to is that I think that a very, very key point to belonging is also giving and receiving very honest, very direct,
Mhm.
and also very respectful feedback that's supposed
Right.
to make us grow and make us be better.
Yeah, I think the point is just like, sometimes we just have to be open and curious. And I think the more you know about a person, the better you can make them feel also included, right? And the better they will also feel like hanging out with you or being with you. I think a lot of times the issue is that we just don't know people enough. We just tend to go into a response, and I think that's how that's how we've evolved as human beings as well, right?
Mm.
So to stay safe in the wild and so on, we always like, if there was something that was not familiar, it was a threat. So you
Yeah.
either go and fight or you run away. So, and unfortunately, that's how our brains are right now as well, right? And we always looking, when we look at something or someone, or we get to know about someone, we try to understand as fast as possible to make these quick decisions in our brain. And if they were not quick in the past, when we were still like in the wild and so on, there was no guarantee of surviving. And I think we have evolved, but the brains have somehow stayed similar. The amygdala is still there doing that function. And I think biases contribute a lot into also making judgments, and then kind of like deciding whether you want to know this person, or you want to make this person, you want to stay away from them and so on, right? So I think one example I read about quite recently is about Stu Rasmussen. He's from the US. Very interesting person. He lived in the same town, and he grew up there with his father for generations, I think. And he bought cable. He was an engineer, and he bought cable to the whole town. So basically, he went to everyone's house and got to know everyone, and spoke and set up their TVs, and and he was a household name essentially because of that. And the other thing was also that the town's only cinema was also like run by him and his dad. So when everyone came, they bought tickets from him and everything, and they knew him, right? And they knew him and his family and his mom and his dad and his siblings. So point here is that everyone knew him. And for some reason, like, I mean, sometime in his life later, after he was married and everything, although he identified as male, he somehow just really liked dressing up as a woman. He had this thing where he just wanted to feel like a woman. He didn't. He still wanted to stay with his wife and everything, but I don't know, painting his nails or wearing heels or wearing a specific kind of amazing, I don't know, dress from a brand and so on. He was really into this. And he started like making small changes. So he's at the ticket counter selling the tickets, and then suddenly a woman sees like, oh, he's painted his nails, he's done his nails. Whoa, Stu, you into this stuff? And okay, she moved on. And then one day he just wears heels with his normal clothes, and then someone else notices it as well, and then looks at him and just like, okay, don't know what's happening. You want to talk about it and so on. He's like, no, I don't want to talk about it. Let's respect that. So I heard his interview, right, and then that's what I noticed. And then he was very subtle with these things, and then he definitely like got breasts and everything. And point being is that he became the mayor of this place. And the question, I mean, for me, it was very fascinating because it was a very conservative place. They always like they all went to the same church. There was no they were not very open minded and so on. But when I saw the transcripts of the interviews of people who voted for him, they were like, he can be the way he wants. We know him, right? We know what he's capable of. So he wants to wear a wig today, or if he wants to wear a dress. At the end of the day, we know that he can do good for this town. And this for me is super fascinating. And he could also be the best version of himself because everyone kind of just let him be, right? Because they knew who he was, what he's capable of, and they were fine with him making these changes for himself. Now, I would say, let's say if he was not living there and he came from a completely different city and he just went there, it would we would it would be a completely different situation. Is because people would be just judging him from day one. They would not know who he is, what he's capable of. So the point being here is that whenever you welcome someone from a different community, or you go yourself into a place where you are, let's say, a minority, it's very important to also have these open conversations. And you mentioned also, Michelle, this feedback part, right? Essentially, feedback is also a conversation where you kind of be as vulnerable as possible. You don't have to give every detail that you're not comfortable sharing, but just being able to open up so that people know you. The more people know you, the more also you will feel included, and people will want to also make you feel included. And for the other way around as well, right? If you are someone who is welcoming someone from a different community and so on, the more you ask questions, the more curious you are. Of course, you always ask permission before also, otherwise we also don't want to come across as someone who's like always being nosy or something like that. But the more you are curious, the more you try to understand, um, another individual, I think it will just work better for both sides. And this example's been like very, very inspiring for me. So this is like one of the positive things I've thought about. And I think another example where I don't think it works that well is like I worked in this one company, and you know, it was the kind of team that was full of like so it was a sales team. It was full of extroverts, people who are just constantly being able to have conversations, talk to customers and everything like that. And there was this one interview where this person that, I looked at the CV, and they had like an amazing track record of being a salesperson. And when the interviews were scheduled, the one of the first interviewers said that they said that they're an introvert. I don't think it might work out. And I was like, the person doesn't have to be the loudest in the room. They have been doing this job for a long time. Just because they told you that they are not an extrovert and the team is full of extroverts, it doesn't mean that they wouldn't be capable of doing a good job. So I think that for me was like also an example where the judgment was passed really fast. And even after they joined, right? So we pushed like together. We had a lot of opinions on this, and at the end of the day, like whatever case study was sent to them, and this practice sales call was done. They were excellent. But even after so we got them in to this person to the organization, and after they came in, it was again a challenge because they wouldn't speak in team meetings. They wouldn't be the first one to speak in the team meetings. They wouldn't be the first ones to, you know, raise a topic and bring awareness to that and so on. But you needed, let's say, someone to ask them what they think, and this is something that we had to then train with the leader and be like, okay, if they are not opening, being the first one to open up, and you need that for your job, maybe with their permission, we can ask them if we can, put them on the spot sometimes and say, hey, what do you think? Because they have the most brilliant ideas. They're just not the first one to speak. So it took a lot of work. And this person was also not comfortable initially because it was too loud. It was everyone, but they're a very capable person. They were one of the top performers after like 8, 9 months of joining the company. They had one of the best numbers. So I think if that effort was not put in initially, they wouldn't have joined or wouldn't have got the job. Even if they would have got the job, they wouldn't have stayed if there was not an extra kind of effort put in from both sides to come to some kind of agreement. And this I think is also a very good example that I can think of right now.
I love this example because it brings a very important point here. That
Yeah,
point being, belonging doesn't mean that it has to click from the very beginning. It
yeah,
means that everybody have to make an effort to make it work. And for me, this
exactly.
is also about cultural differences, because sometimes if you work with people who come from different cultures, it can be people who come from different countries, but it can also be people who come from a different work environment, right?
Right.
Or people who come from a different city than you, or something like this. Then it's all about trying to understand each other and having the basic assumption that we we are one team. We have one interest. We are all
Yeah.
in it for this one thing. And we
Yes.
are a group. We are a team, right? And then you just make it work. You make it work by caring for one another. You make it work
Yes.
by being
Exactly.
curious. Curiosity is a very, very important topic here, right? You
Yes.
need to be curious to people who are not like you, not just say, no, 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 no,
Exactly.
no, I don't care about
Totally.
this. And always trying to put yourself in the shoes of the other person
Other person.
also.
Exactly. Empathy and compassion, right?
Yeah.
But I think I want to mention one more thing about this
Hmm.
example I gave with the salesperson, right? So I mentioned that there was a lot of effort that we put in, right? So first in pushing to hire them, second, and I'll say making them feel included in the team. And I also got sometimes the question that I got the question sometimes whether it was worth it, whether it was worth doing this kind of thing. Why couldn't we take the easy route and like just get someone that was similar? And I think I felt a little bit embarrassed also that the question came up, but this person, like, I mean, and it's such an amazing example, right? This person just proved why it was worth it because they were different. They had different ideas. They would listen to things and observe things better than the others in the team. Sometimes, of course, they were not like taking care of a lot of public speaking and so on, or just like training other people and so on. But that was not their strength. but their strength was observation and was being, and I think as an introvert, they were constantly being able to also to observe these amazing things and bring perspective and share them when asked. And I feel that if there's just a group of people who are so similar all the time in a team, like you wouldn't have that diversity of thought, right? You wouldn't have that person bringing that interesting, new, fresh perspective. It's all easy. It's like written in all kinds of books and textbooks and so on. If you want to build good products, if you want to build interesting companies, you need to have people who think differently, who look at the
Hmm.
problem from different angles, right? Not only the one that you're used to. And similar people, it's nice. You can have really nice conversations. You can have really good team meetings and work on projects and have the same kind of passion and everything. That's great. But unfortunately, we end up looking at things quite similarly then. And that's not enough. If you want to be an innovative company, if you want to be an innovative group, this interesting, different perspective, different angle is very, very important. And I would say I would do this 100 times as a recruiter, as an HR business partner. If I come across a situation like this, yes, the time to hire was longer. Yes, there was a lot of back and forth and convincing and fights and everything that needed to be done, but it was worth everything, and I would do it anytime again. So I think, yeah, it started off with being not like one of the examples of not being included, but it has an happy ending. But I think it's sometimes not always ending that way, right? So, Michelle, do you have some more examples, let's say, where you would say that it really was not an environment where it wasn't working out, where people weren't
Yes,
making any effort?
I think that what you have said here, this is really point on point, because when we are working in a team, when we are working in a group, we should have different perspectives, because through those different perspectives, we can make more steps towards our common goal, right? And those different perspectives, they come from different people who think differently, who come from different places, who have different backgrounds, who have different
Right.
personalities, and so on. So the one side is to bring in those people. The other side is from the other people in the group. So in your case, all the people,
Mhm.
to accept this person and to celebrate them thinking differently, them bringing this fresh perspective, them challenging the status quo in their own way, right? Which might be
Right.
different than the way that they would challenge it. And I think this is where sometimes a lot of companies fail. This is where a lot of people fail, because they think that it's enough to bring some person or bring people who are different into this into the team, the environment, the
Mhm.
company,
Right.
but they don't see what happens when this person is there. How do you make this
Right.
person feel included? It's like, I've seen a very interesting, a very true saying, that diversity is being invited to the party, inclusion is being invited to dance.
Yes. Super important.
And as an example, I can give you an example of the company I used to work for, where they brought all of those really amazing people from all over the world to the company, because they wanted all of those different
Mhm.
perspectives. And this is what the hiring teams wanted. This is what the hiring managers wanted. This is what recruiting wanted. But the moment the people were there, they were not capable of taking care of them and their needs. And one example that really, really, really um, shows that for me was about the name that people were given in their corporate email address. So in every
Right.
company that you go into, you have a corporate email address. And then your corporate email address, you have your name, right? And usually you can say, hi, my name is so and so.
Right.
And people who come from different countries, they sometimes have different name structures. For example, people who come from certain countries in the Middle East, they would have like 5 names in their passport. And so
Yeah.
for us, from our very Western perspective, we would think the first name is their
Mhm.
first name. Yeah.
Right.
And the last name from all of those names will be their family name, right? However, it's not true, because what they have is usually first name, family name, and then name of father and grandfather and so on. So you need to take the first name and the second name, and the corporate email address should be first name and second name. However, if you don't have this perspective, or you don't have this sensitivity, then you would just take first name, last name, and then people would have the wrong name. Now, this is fine as long as you're willing to correct it. But in this company, they were not willing to correct it, right? Because they said, no, first name and last name. This is how we know it from the West. And we apply those standards on
Right.
everything we do. Another example from this company was English names. Some people who come from Asian countries, they have names that are very difficult for us to pronunciate here in the West. So what those people do is they have professional English names. So they have
Right.
Western names that they use as their first names. And then if everybody knows you under your professional English name, then you would also want it to be in your corporate email address and your
Mm.
corporate identity so that everybody will know who you are. And in this company, they also did not allow that because they said, no, this is not the name you have in your passport. We take only the name you have in your passport, and we don't care what your nickname is. Nicknames are not professional things. And so they were basically forcing this Western identity and this Western name structure, name structure on the amazing people that they brought in. And when you would challenge that, that was really amazing, right? Because once I challenged that and I said, hey, what do you do if you have a trans person starting to work here? What would you name them in their dead name or what?
Yeah.
And
So.
nobody could answer this question for
Mm.
me because for them it was really unthought of what they would do if they would have a trans person coming in.
Got it.
This will be a problem that they would not know how to deal with. And so for me, this is how you don't do things, yeah? Because then the people who don't have their name in their email address, in their corporate identity, who always get called in a name that is not their real name,
Not their name. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
they feel not included.
No, no.
Just as
Yeah,
simple as
and
that.
it's super simple. And what's fascinating about this example is that for some people it might just be a name, right? But it's such a simple like fix. If you ask people what they prefer to be called and fix it instead of just saying that it doesn't matter to you, it's I don't know why people would not consider doing that because it's just not just a name. Some people just don't like their names, have traumatic, I don't know, thoughts about it. They've
Yeah.
had they you don't know the history, right? And it's just about like asking, hey, would you like to be called this before? I knew someone who had like a little bit of long name, and they somebody was being always shortening it, and they didn't like it. They told several times, don't call me this. I would like you to, like, just a little bit of the opposite. I would like you to keep
Mhm.
my long name there. But again, the key is here asking what the people prefer, and making adjustments for that, right? Because every day you come in looking at your email, I cannot even imagine that with a name that you don't like or you have not never been called before.
It's more than that. It's about everybody who you will be in interaction with will call you in the name
Call you
that they
that. Hmm.
see in in your email, right? And in your email, in your Slack, in your everything. And then you have to correct them. And you sometimes have to do it several times because people are busy and they don't always pay attention, and things that are difficult for them or things that are different for them, they don't know how to deal with it. It's just human, right? And so when you, dear people in IT or dear people in HR, don't let people be named in their name, you're sentencing them to this experience of either having to correct people multiple times until they get their name right,
Hmm.
or accepting that the company tells you what your name is, that the company dictates your identity. And this is the opposite of inclusion. And we think, why would anybody do that to other people? And I think this is for me the point. They're not evil, they just don't think about it.
They don't think about it. Exactly. It's the awareness that's lacking, right? And
Yeah.
this very interesting point that you also made is that I've seen this a lot, especially in Berlin companies also, where it's just like we have 60 plus nationalities, we have 70 plus nationalities, and you
Hmm.
bring all these people in, and sometimes you put in effort or you don't put in effort, but they end up coming into the organization. But as you mentioned, the same amount of effort is not put in retaining them or making them feel included and that they belong, right? So it's completely like, oh, this is a perfect example of this. So just out of curiosity, how would you have approached it? What would be something that you would have done?
I think that the most important thing for organizations, for people, for everybody is to remember that different people think differently and have different needs, and that how I am is not necessarily how you are. You are a different person than me. I would apply curiosity on it. So basically, instead of telling you, no, your name has to be this and that, I would apply curiosity and asking you, okay, so how would you like me to call you? What is your name? How do I pronounce your name? For example, for companies and IT departments, I would really recommend with this really simple thing of name,
Hmm.
Just let people be named as they want. In every
As they want.
company, in every HRIS, you have the option to differentiate between a preferred name and a legal
Yes.
name. Yeah.
Mhm.
So you can have a different name for the legal documents like employment contract, pay slips, etc., and for the corporate identity. Let people have that.
Mhm.
Accept and celebrate other people's perspectives. And if you see that there is somebody who is maybe not fitting in really well immediately, if you have somebody new in your team, and it can be somebody from another country, it can be somebody from the same country, it can be somebody, whatever, just talk to them. Just try to make them feel like they belong. Invite them for lunch, right? Um, have a coffee with them. Ask them in a team meeting, hey, what do you think? Not in the idea of putting them on the spot, but in the idea of like making them feel like they belong. If you see that somebody is struggling, give them a hand. Just as simple
Yeah.
as that. Just as simple as that. And I think that the most important thing for me as an expat, the most important thing is to be in an environment that is inclusive, right? To be in an
Totally.
environment that will
Mhm.
accept me as I am.
Yeah.
Um, and that would also mean for me that I will accept other people as they are. I might not like everybody. This is a
Mhm.
different thing. Yeah. Liking people and being friends with people is a different thing. But accepting everybody and respecting everybody, creating this environment that it's just happy for everybody to be, where everybody
Yeah.
can just be the best version of themselves, as you say. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
Totally.
not rocket science. It's just about respecting other people.
It's exactly, and I think that's very fundamental. And another point that you mentioned is also like observe, right? If you're seeing someone is struggling, there's nothing better than asking. They might ask you to say, "Okay, just stay out of it. Let me be alone. I want to be alone." But it's always worth asking. Hey, are you okay? Is everything fine? And I remember that when I first came here, like I was trying to get myself the student ticket to take the public transport, and it's I was constantly going to this office and it never worked out. Like whatever they had to do was never working out. And of course, I don't need to pay because I'm a registered student. But this one individual, and unfortunately, I had only that time during my breaks, at my lunch break, they kept sending me back for some different reasons why they didn't feel that they could help me or I could get this ticket and so on. And then I just like come back after like the fifth time, sit in university and almost like, you know, just sitting there and thinking I don't know what to do and feeling quite sad. I had one of my German like classmates actually come and say, "Hey, are you okay? Are you fine?" And I burst out in tears. That's what I needed in that moment. And I just told them, "Look, I'm struggling with this. It's been 5 times. I'm trying to do this." And they're like, "You're not alone. We go through this too. Sometimes there's a problem with their process or their system. Let me come with you this time, and we can see. And there's ways we can fix it." And that's exactly what I needed that day, right? And if they were not observant and they had not asked me how I'm doing, or and I will never forget, it just eased so much of my stress because I stayed so far away from university. It was really important that I fixed it, and the smaller things like this, I think, matter a lot. That someone is there like for you always. You're never alone in these situations. Yeah. So
This is another one that's point on. You're not in this alone. The process is broken. Sometimes we think that it's on me. Yeah,
yes,
I am the minority. I am the foreigner. I didn't understand well. I didn't speak German well enough.
yes,
It's on me. I'm the new person. I don't know how things are like. And sometimes just hearing, actually, everybody's going through the same. You're not in this alone. It's not you, it's the process. That's the inclusive thing. And that's the thing that will help you feel a bit better and will may help you maybe
yes,
motivate yourself to solve it. Because if it's not you, if everybody is going through this, but everybody at the end solve it, then you will also solve it.
exactly. And also talking about inclusiveness, I have to say that I was the other day contemplating what could be my biggest fear in life. And it's just like not being wanted, feeling that you're
Mm.
not being wanted. And I think as human beings, we really need this. We really need to know that I'm respected as an individual, that I belong here, that I'm wanted here, that someone sometime should take or would take the extra mile to just make me feel a little bit comfortable. Sometimes I also remember that I had like a leader. Again, I'm not one of those people who's I at least started off with being one of those people who never like was the first one to speak in meetings. Um, and this amazing leader of mine, and I worked with her very closely, and she noticed this about me, right? And it became a part of my personal development plan that I should get better at expressing myself and my opinions. But she didn't leave it at that, that it's a me problem that I just have to fix it on my own before the next performance review. The way we worked it out was that she told me that she's good at this and she'll help me out. She was an ally. Then she told me, hey, you know what? Usually I claim my space very well in meetings. The next time we are in together with meetings, I will put the ball on you, as I said also with this other example with the salesperson, right? You're going to speak when I ask you to. If you don't feel comfortable, you tell me you need some more time, it's fine, but I'm going to still create that space for you because I have already claimed the space and I feel I'm a little bit privileged here now in this group. And I would like to share that with you so that you are able to also bring these amazing thoughts, right? Because I already have the stage that I'm on. So she was a senior leader. So I found that also like very, very inspiring. And I think after that, I've never looked back. I always think of her in challenging meetings, although we're not working together anymore. And I'm like, yeah, she said this to me, I can claim my space, I can do this. And it was life changing for me. It was in the beginning of my career. And it just costed them a little bit of time sometimes, or,
Mm.
they had to keep me in the back of their head. But I think it was a simple thing to do. And it just made someone so happy and feel good about themselves.
This
So,
is an amazing, 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 amazing experience. And what I take from this is share your knowledge and share your skills with others. Like I think the most important, the most amazing thing I take from this that she said, I already claim my space. I'm privileged because I know how to claim my space. Now I share it with you so that you will learn. And this is how we grow and this is how we become better. This is
yes.
really a really inspiring example. Thank you for sharing it.
Thank you, Michali. I think, yeah, this is very close to me, this one. So I like to do this thing in the last part of my section. And I think we're not, as I said, we're not experts or professionals with this. We're just human beings on this podcast, right? On this stage. But we can try maybe through our experiences to give people some tips, and we can do it as in a speed way. You don't doesn't have to be very extensive. Maybe you can just say 2 words or 3 words, or if you have a short sentence on what could be some of the things people could do to start creating an inclusive environment, whether it's a group of people living together, or I don't know, in school or at work or university. So could you think of something on top of your head immediately, and then maybe you can pass over to me, I pass over to you. So like a speed tip part.
Yes. Be curious. Everybody. The minorities, the majorities, everybody, be curious.
I would say to complement that, be understanding. So someone says like, hey, someone assumes something about you, they're still just human. Be understanding. They give them a teaching moment, but also don't be too hard on them so that they're traumatized every time they have to speak with you from the next time. So be a little bit more understanding, maybe. Over
Nice.
to
And to
you.
complement this, I would say assume the best in people. Assume that people always mean good. So
That's
even
amazing.
if somebody is giving you feedback, and even if the feedback is strong and harsh, assume that they're always meaning good. They're giving you this feedback so that you can learn and grow and become better.
Perfect. Yeah. I think to complement that, look at it as an enjoyable process, learning process. You will not from one day to the other become an inclusive company or an inclusive group of people or an inclusive, I don't know, individual who knows everything about everyone and can make everyone feel great. We will all make mistakes. So be kind on yourself. Yeah. And over to you, last one, Mishali.
Be welcoming. Be welcoming to people who are different than you. Be welcoming to your new joiners. Even if you've made a hire and you think, yeah, is this the right person? Give it some time. 1 month is not enough. Give it 6 months to decide if it's really the right hire or not.
Totally. Yes. And I think I'd
Yes.
like to close that one with what Mishali said is as well. Have empathy, understand. And you also mentioned this, like put yourself in the other person's shoes. And give it a chance and think from that perspective. Look at it from a little bit of a different angle than you're used to. Yeah, so I think so that's it for today. We've spoken a lot. It's also, I should say to the audience, if you when you tune in, it's the first time we are doing this. I'm doing this, at least recording and production and everything on my own. And Mishali is the first person I thought of for joining this journey, and she's been really patient
It was
with
so
me.
much fun. Thank you so much.
So thank you so much. And you can write to us on our email addresses, which we will be also putting in the post. If you would like to have more of a conversation, be a part of a community that we are thinking of, we want to build here in Berlin. of like-minded individuals. So yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks, Michelle, again for being on our show, and take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.